Alright, I welcome you to this new episode of the Political Analysis Program. This is Rodin Mugemaria for Pessimist, as usual. Before we dive in, thank you for subscribing. Please continue subscribing such that we move together. I have some breaking news here. The leader of the Hezbollah group in Lebanon, Sheikh Sayyed Hassan Nasrallah, has been killed by the Israeli Defense Forces (IDF) in the airstrikes they carried out. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli strike. I think it was on Friday, the Israeli military said. While a source close to Hezbollah said that the Lebanese group had lost contact with Nasrallah since Friday evening without confirming his death, because he was largely responsible for expanding Hezbollah, or Party of God. Hezbollah means Party of God, from a guerrilla faction into Lebanon's most powerful political force. Of course, Nasrallah led Hezbollah through decades of conflict with Israel, overseeing its transformation into a military force with a regional sway and becoming one of the most prominent Arab figures in generations, with Iranian backing. Of course, Nasrallah was the only man in Lebanon with the power to wage war or make peace, but he led a life in hiding to avoid assassination by his movement's arch-enemy Israel. Of course, he enjoyed cult status among his Shiite Muslim supporters. Was equipped with a formidable arsenal far bigger and more modern than the national armies, and held sway over Lebanonese institutions. Nasrallah was rarely been seen in public since his movement fought a devastating 2006 war with Israel. In 2011, the leader showed up at a religious procession in Beirut's southern suburbs and briefly greeted supporters before addressing the crowd on a video from an undisclosed location. In a 2014 interview with the Lebanese pro-Hezbollah newspaper Al-Kabar, Nasrallah said that the Israelis are pushing the idea that I live far from people, that I don't see them or communicate with them. He said that he regularly switched sleeping places, but denied that he lived in a bunker. The point of security measures is that movement be kept secret, but that doesn't stop me from moving around and seeing what is happening. That's what he said. Of course, Nasrallah was still occasionally photographed alongside other leaders of Iran-backed armed group in the Middle East. Very few people believed to know where he lived. Officials and journalists who met Nasrallah in recent years described the tight security measures that prevented them from knowing where they were being taken. Of course, the vast majority of his speeches in the past 2 decades were recorded and broadcast from a secret location. Now, when we talk about supporting Hamas, a gifted public speaker who has been killed at 64 was a master of cadence, swinging from hammer to burrito his enemies to rage to fire up his 100,000-man militia. The bearded, bespectacled cleric was never seen without traditional robes and the black turban that marks him out as a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. He was married and has 4 surviving children. He was elected Secretary General of Hezbollah in 1992, aged just 32, after an Israeli helicopter gunship killed his predecessor, the one whom he succeeded, Abbas al-Musawi. Hezbollah is the only group, by the way, it has to be remembered that it is the only group that refused to give up its weapons after Lebanon's 15 years civil war ended in 1990. and Nasrallah insisted that Israel remained an existential threat. Since Hezbollah's Palestinian ally Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, of course, last year, 2023, Hezbollah has battered Israeli troops almost daily along the Lebanese-Israel border. So the political force, of course, born in Beirut's impoverished southern suburb of Bajir Hamad on August 31st, 1960, was one of the 9 children of a poor grocer hailing from the teeny southern village of Bazorea. So, when we look at his academic background, Nasrallah Sayyed Hassan studied politics and the Quran for 3 years at a seminary in Iraq's city of Najaf before being expelled in 1978 when the Sunni-dominated government turned on Shiite activists. He then became heavily involved in Lebanese politics and gained much of his Arab experience in the Shiite Ammar militia during the civil war. But he broke away from Ammar when Israeli troops marched on Beirut in 1982 to become one of the founders of Hezbollah. Of course, he acquired his current status in Lebanon and across the Arab world after Israel withdrew its troops from southern Lebanon under the relentless Hezbollah attack in May 2000, ending 22 years of occupation of the border strip. So, Nasrallah's years at the helm of Hezbollah, all part of God, saw the group expand from guerrilla faction into the country's most powerful political force. Hezbollah is admired by many Shiites in Lebanon for supporting local charities, building up health and education services in its strongholds, and assisting the need among its supporters. But in dividend Lebanon, the movement is also widely hated, including by those who dream of a nation free from sectarianism and where the rule of law, of course, prevails. Nasrallah's personal popularity soared across the Arab world after a United Nations brokered ceasefire ended in the 2006 conflict with Israel before suffering a blow when he sent fighters to neighboring Syria to prop up President Bashar al-Assad's regime in the war since 2011. So now people are asking how is a kid Nasrallah, how he was crippled, how his brother's leader Nasrallah and crippled the terror group in its border. So the plan has been years in the making. The target, that's what I can tell. The target, one of the most famous figures in the Arab world and one of the most hated in Israel. Of course, in the 11 days before it was implemented, Israel had conducted a military campaign of metromonic efficiency in Lebanon. Each phase meticulously and ruthlessly executed. Each blow delivered as Hezbollah was still staggering from the one that preceded it. But then, at dusk on Friday came the heaviest blow of them all, one that may forever cripple Hezbollah, weaken the Iranian influence, and potentially even reshape the Middle East itself. There are detonations echoing across the Beirut skyline. More than 80 bunker busting bombs pulverized not just for high-rise buildings above the ground, but also the subterranean complex that housed Hezbollah's secret headquarters. Of course, the synchronized sabotage of Hezbollah's communication devices and the other assassinations in previous days had shown Israel was not short of accurate intelligence about a movement that it had clearly infiltrated at all levels. But this was on a different scale. If previous attacks had systematically severed many of the spokes of the Iran-backed movement, this one was striking at its very heart. So not only did Israel know the location of the secret bank of a man who had not been seen in public for 2 decades. They knew where Hassan Nasrallah would be and that he would be meeting some of the few senior commanders who had survived the assassination strikes of the preceding weeks. In fact, Israel had known for months, tracking Nasrallah's every movement until deciding to strike this week after learning that the Hezbollah leader planned to move to an unknown place location, according to Israeli officials quoted by the New York Times. So, as the plan was finalized, it was decided that the operation should be mounted as Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, was in New York to address the United Nations General Assembly, something Israel's military chief believed might persuade Nasrallah to lower his guard. The ruse succeeded as Mr. Netanyahu addressed the press in New York following his speech, and aide whispered in his ear, and the Israeli Prime Minister withdrew to give the command to attack. 4 hours afterwards, neither side knew Nasrallah's fate, but gradually, amid the chaos in southern Beirut, there was enough intelligence to confirm that he was indeed dead, something Hezbollah itself grudgingly conceded a few hours later. Sweetening the triumph of Israel, the bomb did not just kill Nasrallah. A number of senior Iranian military figures were also among the dead. Israel believes, as was al-Karaki, a senior Hezbollah commander who survived the previous assassination attempt just days earlier. So Israel's military leadership made it clear on Saturday that this was not the end of the assassinations, with the remaining Hezbollah commanders still in their sights. This is not the end for our toolbox, Lieutenant General Haz Halevi, Israel's top army general, told the reporters. We have more capacity going forward. Anyone who threatens the state of the Israel will know how to reach them. If this was a moment of of course, a triumph for Israel's military establishment, and so he hopes a passage to possible political redemption for Mr. Netanyahu, there is no question Hezbollah has suffered the most grievous in a returning of disasters. Nasrallah must not have been involved in Hezbollah's day-to-day military operations. We know that, but he was the centrifuge around which the movement spanned. For many in the Middle East, perhaps more than any other of Israel's force, he was the embodiment of resistance to the Jewish state. The son of a greengrocer, he climbed through Hezbollah's ranks until he reached the top after Israel killed his predecessor, Abbas al-Musawi. One of the movement's co-founders in a missile strike on his motorcade in the year 1992. Nasrallah proved a much more adaptive leader than Musawi, using his organization skills and close ties to Iran to turn the movement into a formidable political and military force. So, having waged a guerrilla war that persuaded Israel to end its occupation in southern Lebanon in 2000, he was increasingly viewed as a hero by many in the Middle East. He banished that reputation when his fighters battled invading Israeli troops to a bloody standstill in the hills of southern Lebanon in 2006. A stalemate he successfully, if dubiously, portrayed as a great military victory to his fellow Shia Muslims in Lebanon and beyond. Spending Nasrallah's death and the turmoil of recent days, of course, will be far harder. Now, even before the killing of Nasrallah, a growing number of analysts believe that Hezbollah's reputation as the world's most powerful non-state armed groups was withering. Now, with its leader out of the equation, it may quite possibly be facing a slow but terminal decline, as its once formidable reputation shrinks so too might that of Iran, which created, nurtured, funded, armed, untrained Hezbollah. So Iranian's ability to project influence through the region by means of proxy militias is now in question. Despite warning Israel that it had opened the gates for her against itself, Tehran appears to have abandoned Hezbollah to fend for itself, rebuffing calls from the movement of course, to come to its rescue by attacking Israel directly. Nasrallah's killing is going to cause irreversible damage for Hezbollah, and I don't think it will be able to recover from it, said Rena Khatib, an associate fellow at Chatham House, the international affairs think tank. I think we are seeing both a historic shift in Hezbollah's power and a historic shift in the trajectory of Iran's influence in the Middle East. This is Rodin Mgimadi for Pessimist. Thank you for listening to the the trajectory, incident that real has just happened in Beirut, in Lebanon. Of course, I'm looking forward to improve on my programs. Let me know about what you've liked, what I can improve on. The Almighty God of all creation is great and, of course, is merciful. Special thanks goes to all the anonymous listeners out there. Thank you for listening, and please continue subscribing. Subscribe, comment, share, and wait